Why do you keep tripping over your own routines every day? It's like there's a slow-moving factory assembly line inside your mind, quietly throwing in faulty parts right when you need smooth flow. You want success. You really do. Yet somehow you turn against your own discipline and habits. Why do we self-sabotage our progress, despite knowing better? This isn't about laziness or lack of willpower. After this, the next time you sit down to focus or try to build a habit, you'll spot the hidden moves your brain makes and how to stop them dead in their tracks. Sabotage's roots. Workers fighting back. Ever feel like you're getting in your own way without meaning to? That urge to mess things up isn't new. It goes back to the Industrial Revolution, when skilled workers known as Luddites smashed machines to fight back against harsh conditions. They weren't just breaking things. They were sending a message. Around the same time, French thinkers like Émile Littré recorded the word sabotage as linked to bungling work, and syndicalists like Émile Pouget later shaped sabotage into a deliberate tactic for labor resistance. Imagine a factory floor in the 19-teens. Workers showed up tired, stuck under bosses who pushed long hours. They couldn't quit or protest out loud, so they found another path. They slowed the machines, dropped a wrench, misaligned a gear. It wasn't random damage. It was control. They took back some ground by breaking the factory's rhythm. They forced bosses to see their value. Bill Haywood, a key figure in the industrial workers of the world, saw this firsthand in Europe. Workers carried their strike to the job itself by making production fail quietly but effectively. Now try this. When you feel powerless, pause. Ask yourself where you might be holding back your own effort. Not because you're lazy, but as a signal, you need to change the rules. Sabotage began as a quiet fight for respect. But what if this kind of rebellion slips into your everyday life? That's when it gets tricky. Expanding sabotage, slowdowns, and strikes as power. But sabotage isn't just about chaos or destruction. Think of it like a slow-moving factory assembly line where workers don't just quit. They push back by slowing down the whole process. Big Bill Haywood and the industrial workers of the world saw sabotage as a form of resistance that included slowdowns, strikes, and even quiet refusal to cooperate. They weren't just wrecking machines. They were shifting power in workplaces where bosses controlled every move. Imagine a crew on an assembly line suddenly agreeing to take 2 extra seconds on every step. It sounds small, but over a day, that slowdown cuts production dramatically and sends a clear message without a single word. That's sabotage turned into strategy. You can try this yourself. If you feel stuck in a daily routine or job that drains you, experiment with small acts that reclaim your time or energy. Maybe it's taking a longer break, saying no to extra tasks, or slowing the pace without quitting, not to frustrate others, but to reset your control. Sabotage, in this sense, isn't about wrecking yourself. It's about stopping the grind long enough to push for something better. Yet, when this approach breaks down or meets resistance, it can spiral into bigger conflicts or personal setbacks. So what happens when sabotage fails to shift the balance? That's where the Robert-Bourassa crisis deepens the story. When sabotage breaks down, the Robert-Bourassa crisis. You've seen workers slow down the assembly line, right? That's sabotage as protest. But at Robert-Bourassa's Hydro project in 1974, it went way beyond just slowing things down. Picture bulldozers smashing electric generators, fuel tanks leaking, buildings set on fire. The damage pushed the project back by a year and cost $2 million Canadian dollars. That's not a protest, that's destruction. The scale reminds you of wartime sabotage like the Black Tom explosion or the Kingsland explosion, where vital facilities were deliberately wrecked to disrupt larger efforts. What happened at Robert-Bourassa? It wasn't just one thing. Rival unions were at odds. And the American bosses from Bechtel acted like they owned the place. The frustration piled up until resistance spiraled into chaos. When you ignore small signs of unrest, it can explode into something costly and violent. Think of that slow-moving factory line again. If you let one part grind to a stop, it affects everything downstream. You don't want your resistance to break down like that. Instead, notice the early warnings. Speak up before it gets out of control. Because if you don't, sabotage stops being a tool and starts being a hazard. Next, what does sabotage look like when it's quiet, hidden beneath the surface? That's where resistance gets tricky. Sabotage as quiet resistance today. You just saw how sabotage can break down big systems unexpectedly. Now, take the Earth Liberation Front. From the early 1990s to late 2000s, they quietly disabled equipment near wildlands to stop logging and construction projects. No open protests, no shouting matches. Just small acts, like loosening bolts on machinery or cutting wires. These moves didn't blow up headlines, but slowed progress enough to send a message. Someone was resisting. Sabotage here wasn't about chaos. It was invisible defiance, a slow-moving factory assembly line grinding to a halt through tiny, careful disruptions. Notice how this kind of sabotage thrives on subtlety. You don't have to take down a giant all at once. You chip away with small, deliberate steps that avoid direct confrontation, but still push back. Imagine disabling one conveyor belt in a plant every couple of weeks. It might seem minor, but over time the whole operation stutters. Here's the catch. What looks like random glitches or accidents often hides a quiet protest. This kind of sabotage is less about destruction and more about resistance that stays under the radar. But the strangest part? It's not just about fighting outside forces. Sometimes sabotage starts from inside. Your own mind, your own habits. That piece is harder to spot. That part I'll save for the close. Sabotage, misread. More internal failures than enemy attacks. During World War II, the FBI investigated nearly 20,000 cases of sabotage. You'd expect clear enemy attacks in all of them. But many turned out to be internal failures or simple misunderstandings. False alarms piled up. Picture a factory line slowing because a tiny gear got stuck. It wasn't sabotage by the enemy, just a misread signal. Or imagine a train delayed not by wreckage, but by a signal light showing the wrong color. That's what sabotage often looks like in practice. It's not always an outside attack. Sometimes the system trips itself up. The Allies recognized this too. The OSS Simple Sabotage Field Manual taught that sabotage could be as simple as jamming communications or holding pointless meetings to slow down the enemy's work. These small acts of disruption were designed so ordinary people could do them safely. When you feel like you're your own worst enemy, remember this. Not every problem is sabotage from outside forces. Sometimes, you're just caught in your own false alarms. Start by spotting when you assume the worst without proof. Then ask yourself, is this really sabotage or just a glitch I can fix? That question opens a new way to face setbacks. It leads you to the next challenge. What if you're not only tripping on glitches, but actually working against yourself? That's where it gets real. Self-sabotage, when resistance turns inward. Why do you sometimes trip over your own plans? Like missing a deadline, or turning a simple email into a half-day ordeal. Think about those moments as your mind's form of sabotage. It's a survival move, born from feeling stuck or powerless. Picture the morning you tell yourself you'll start an important project, but end up scrolling through your phone for 30 minutes instead. That avoidance isn't random. It's your brain pushing back against the pressure, like a slow-moving factory line that grinds to a halt when a part jams. It's not about laziness or lack of willpower. Your mind is defending itself against a threat it senses, maybe fear of failure or doubts about your worth. Recognizing this changes everything. Instead of beating yourself up, you can step back and ask, what if this resistance is a signal? Next time you catch yourself avoiding a task, break it down into the tiniest step. Maybe just opening the document or writing one sentence. That small move interrupts the pattern and clears space for action. This isn't a magic fix. Resistance will show up again, but now you're spotting the warning lights instead of crashing blind. What happens when you turn that resistance into a cue? How do you turn self-sabotage into a tool for forward motion? From sabotage to strategy, taking control of your actions. But you can flip that script. When you catch yourself freezing in front of a big project, it's not a personal failure. It's your brain waving a flag. You're not the enemy here. The resistance is telling you something needs breaking down. Say you've got to organize your whole apartment, and the thought makes you want to quit before you start. Don't attack that mountain all at once. Pick one drawer, clear it out, toss what's trash, put the rest away. One small move. Tomorrow, tackle another drawer. It's like a slow-moving factory assembly line, steady, piece by piece, until the whole thing runs smooth. This tiny shift doesn't just get stuff done, it turns resistance into progress. You start trusting yourself to handle what looked impossible. Here's the catch. What's the real message behind your resistance? What small, manageable move is calling your name, waiting for you to spot it? Why do you keep tripping over your own routines every day? Because your mind treats discipline like a battlefield. Self-sabotage is not random failure. It's a quiet clash between what you want and old habits or fears pulling you back. Like the industrial workers of the world once used sabotage to resist unfair control, your brain sometimes resists change to protect what feels safe, even if it blocks your success. When you stop fighting yourself and start spotting these hidden traps, you shift from sabotage to steady progress. Today, try this. Catch one small moment when you're about to quit or skip your habit and pause. Ask yourself what fear or doubt is behind that. That's where real change begins.